As a hairstylist who owns multiple multi-million-dollar companies, in this podcast, I'm talking to hairstylists and salon owners who are ready to put in the work to build wealth. We are literally teaching stylists how to get results. We're getting them to get results on how to make more money behind the chair and to create their own empires. It's what you know that you don't know that you need to know in order to get to where you want to go. Because I understand now that in order for me to get to my targets and my big goals and be able to impact 500,000 stylists all over the world and 400 plus salon owners and helping them run an efficient business that they don't feel like they're babysitting anymore, that they feel like they know how to scale it because they have the right information. We get to touch this magic every day of giving people the confidence of hair, but truly it's how do we be more impactful and understanding. My name is Terra Harvell and this is the Terra Harvell Show. Okay, you guys, welcome to the Terra Harvell Show, and I am so honored for today's guest. You guys are going to hear from him if you're coming to the Legacy Summit here in a few weeks, and this is one of my greatest mentors. I honestly set out to be just as cool as him. Right before this, we recorded our own podcast, and I understood that I will never be as cool as him, so I'm going to let you guys experience this guy, but he is known as the Vibe Authority. He's been in Forbes. He is a just amazing keynote speaker for so many events, but he is my first leader and boss ever in the hair industry. And here we are. This is why you don't burn bridges, people, because what little does he know, I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to work together, and that's what we're going to do. So welcome, Kelly Cardenas. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Terra, I can't tell you how proud I am of you. If once they listen to this whole podcast, which you shouldn't think of me at all you need to do is go to the podcast and listen to Terra. This girl is an absolute beast. Just do me these four things. One, ask her specific questions. Number two, put a crazy timeline on them, like 2 minutes and 22 seconds. I've got one question, 2 minutes to 22 seconds. And then listen to her, apply it, and then bring her back the results. And she will give you I tell you, she will lead you down the right road for where you want to go. I don't know why the balloons just happened either, Terra, but I'm excited about it.
That's why, Zoom knows that this is a celebration. So that's why we have to do it. Well, thank you for that. And I'm so honored that you're here. And something that you said this in your podcast, you guys, by the way, go check out his podcast. And at the end of this, I'll tell you guys where to find it and all of that. But this is such a full circle moment because I want you to go to his podcast to hear the story about how I came into his company. But he had the best salons in the world. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear more about his journey and how he got to where he is, because now he's impacting thousands and thousands, millions of people with teaching people how to have the best vibe, which is actually one of the biggest lessons that you taught me. So Kelly, I want you to tell everybody, tell them your journey, tell them where you came from, tell them who you are. I want them to know what you do.
Well, first of all, the vibe for me for so long was a soft and cushy word that people talk about. Oh, I like your vibes, good vibes, all the stuff. The paradigm really shifted for me, Terra, when I realized that it was not the energy that you brought into the room, that it was the way that people felt when you left, that was your vibe. And once I figured that out, once I learned that, everything shifted. It became not about me. It became about the way that the person felt. And for me to find out how people felt, I had to be present with them. I had to talk to them, and I had to find where they were and figure out what they needed and help them to be able to get to that point. And once that happened, then we took the brakes off, as my pops would call it, took the mufflers off. My story is not inspiring. It's one of those ones that my dad bought dog clippers to shave the dog because he wanted to save money. He was that type of dad. We tried them on the dog. It ran away because we didn't chain it up. It turned them on each other. My brother cut my hair while my other brother was laughing. The one cutting became an attorney. The one laughing became a doctor. And the one getting his hair cut jacked up was this guy. And I became a hairdresser. But when people ask me why I started in the industry, it had nothing to do with hair. It had to do with, I just loved people. And hair was always a conduit to get to people. My parents had given me the thought that always chase number one. So when I got in the industry, I just chased number one. I found the guy who was the guy, and his name happened to be Robert Cromines. I followed him for 2.5 years. Every hair show I was in the front row, gave him my card every single time. And I said, hey, my name is Kelly Cardenas. I'd love to work with you someday. After 2.5 years, he finally called, but when he called, I thought it was because I was awesome. He said, no, because I was scared of you. I was either going to have to kill you or hire you. I moved across the country. At the time, I was very fortunate. I was living in Memphis, Tennessee. Go south. I was close to you, Tara. And I was at the time I was doing better than I could ever imagine. I was before I was 21, I was making $75,000 a year. This was before social media. And when Jesus walked the earth, that's how old I am. And I got the offer from Robert to move out to San Diego. And he offered me minimum wage, which was actually $5 an hour. And I'd move to the most expensive place in the country, which was San Diego. So it was a $62,000 pay cut a year at 21 years old. I cried out to God and said, because I thought I'd get off on a technicality. And I said, God, you need to show me in your word that this is what you want me to do. And when I read, it talked about Moses taking the Israelites out of Egypt, and it said, I will redeem you without money. And when I saw that, tears flowed, and my mom was like, why? Because God talked to you? I said, no, because all my money's gone now. But what God told me at that time, he said, look, you have a glass that was issued to you when you were born. And that glass is very small, but it's full of all your accomplishments, your attributes, all the things. And it's very small. It's full. You could walk around for the rest of your life. You could brag about it. Or you could give it back to me. I'll give you a bucket. It'll be empty, but when I fill it, you'll never know how much I can bless you. And I chose the bucket. And that's why we're here today.
Wow. And that's what one of the things that we actually teach inside of our programs is sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. That's exactly what you did. Tell me more about that. And I think that a lot of us, we have a hard time listening, especially when God calls us to do something huge and you have to go backwards to go forward. I see this happen all the time in the industry. People aren't humble enough or willing to let go of the ego. I can imagine in this moment, you had to let go of an ego to go be an assistant. Were you an assistant at Robert Croming's?
Oh yeah. And assistant that at that point was a lot different. So you had the ability, which I wish that I own a business like this. Well, I did it for a while. And some of the things, as you know, because we work together, some of the things may not pass a AR or a HR sniff test. But at the time,
what is legal compliance? We don't need that.
So, but it was one of those things where I was so happy to have the job that $5 an hour actually on salary for me, I didn't care. I didn't care what it was. And it was $200 a week on salary. Now I look back at that was less than minimum wage. And we didn't have a punch card. Like you didn't clock in. And anyone working in California, like you have to, have 17 hours of break to be able to work 2 hours. But for us, it was literally, this was the rule. This is what they told us. And it wasn't a written thing. They told us, they said, as an assistant, you will come in before everyone's there and you will leave when after everyone leaves. And we were like, cool, high five, $200 a week. That was $160.11, $161.11 every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So $320.22 a month.
So I know a little bit about the next journey. I don't even know how did you eat in San Diego, even at that time?
Well, actually, I did the math wrong. So that was, $160 a week. So it was $320 every 2 weeks. So I made $640.22 a month. And my rent payment was $560. So you could do the math on that. The way that I did eat, and I'm glad that you asked it, is every Thursday, I would treat myself. I could either have a Western bacon cheeseburger with no fries and drink at Carl's Jr., or I could go to a place that was called Vesuvio and have a pizza. And on Thursday, I would treat myself. Every other day, I had potato spuds that are the dehydrated potatoes that you add hot water to, and you could make mashed potatoes. I had that and top ramen because I did this math, and this is okay. So there's 3 meals a day. I'm a math guy. So there's 3 meals a day. At the time, you could buy top ramen for 10 for $1. So with 3 meals a day, 7 days a week was 21 meals. 21 meals meant that I could eat, if I was focused, for $2.10 a week with 3 square meals. Now, $2.10 a week was $8.40 a month. And so my mentality was, and I would go say this to kids, which I'd get in trouble with now. I said, if you are, and to every hairdresser out there, if you are spending more than $8.40 a month on food, then you really don't want what you say you want. Top ramen doesn't cost 10 for a dollar. It's like in California, it's like $1.1 million per top ramen now.
Yeah.
But this was the type of mentality that I believed. Now, I'm a dad now. I'm a girl dad. So some of the things that you went through, and I said to you when we were talking on the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Terra. I love you. You're awesome. I just want to tell you you're amazing, because I'm a girl dad now. But I don't know. I mean, that's kind of that was the place. I don't know if I answered the question, but
no, you did. And I want to know, after you were doing this, and obviously weren't probably getting the results at the time that you wanted, making that small amount. Why did you stay? Because this is where, in that moment, is where I see the industry, they quit.
Yeah.
And so why did you stay and keep going? Most people don't.
Well, I always saw the reason why I was there in the first place. And so, I had great parents, and my pop said to me, he said, son, you're going to the greatest college that you could ever go to. He said, you're going to Harvard, and they're actually paying you. And I was like, yeah, Dad, but they're paying me $2, $5 an hour. He said, they don't pay you to go to Harvard. You're getting paid to go to Harvard. And it shifted the paradigm, where then I was looking at it and I was like for me, I mean, I was around Robert Cromeans, who was the GOAT. Like, he was Michael Jordan at the time, and still is, of the industry. And I was with him every day. And I was right by his side when he would say to do something. And I told him, this is how I got the job. He said, why should I hire you? Whatever. And I said, because if you drink, and this was how silly I said, if you drink that water, I pointed at a glass of water. I said, you drink half that glass of water, I'll drink the other half. And then I thought I was Socrates. I was like, boom. And he still to this day laughs at me. He's like, oh, you're going to drink the rest of the water? Like, it was so dumb. But yeah, that was a dumb thing. Don't say that to Terra when you're trying to get, work at Harper Ellis. That's not going to work. But it was just the thought of like, because I just watched, and I tell you, the professional beauty industry is the easiest business in the whole entire world, because all you have to do is smile, make eye contact, and show up. That's all you have to do, because 95% of the kids don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I came into it, it was just like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And at the time, I was getting exactly what I wanted, even at $5 an hour, because for 2.5 years, Terra, like, I chased him. I was after him. I wanted it. And that's when you moved across the country, and I wasn't jumping up and down when you came from Arkansas. The reason why is because I had already done that. Like, I had done that and then pushed through and watched a bunch of people fall off, saying that they were I'm in, and then drop off. So that I think that, you said it in the podcast, is like, I loved your, I can't remember the other part of it, but you said the stats, the integrity and the stats, those two things were unreal. So you're a genius.
Yeah. Well, tell us what happened, after that, because you became a salon owner several years later, because I got to be a part of your salons. And so I want to know how you got there, because that's the part of everyone wants to be a salon owner in this industry. We've had this conversation already. People do it before they're ready. So tell me about that journey.
Well, I got fired on my day off, like Craig on Friday. So, I made some decisions that weren't that great. And now I look back at it, and, I was a bonehead, and the company let me go. And at the time, I didn't realize that there was other options. See, the way that God built me is he will only show me one thing. And you know this from being friends for a long time. He'll show me one thing. I will be so locked into that one thing. And then once I'm locked in, completely committed, then he'll be like, oh, and all these other things you could have done. But I'm like, why did you show me later, God? Because I'm only locked into this thing. So my only mentality when I left was, I've got to cut away the fat. I've got to honor my education, honor my experience with Robert, and I want to honor him to my dying day with every single thing that I do. And that means that I have to cut away the fat and continue to make this thing better. And I want to congratulate you, Terra, because seeing you and what you do, like, you may give me compliments, things like that, but you have cut away the fat. You have like you have made it efficient. You have made it scalable. You have made like you are the one that is taking it into the next generation. And my hat's off.
Thank you.
When I stepped into salon ownership, it wasn't because of inspiration. It was desperation. But when I stepped off into it, I just thought, like, you know what? We're just gonna all the things that I thought that we can make a little bit better. We're gonna make those better. And that, I, I found my first place by I got a real estate agent, said I need 1,200 square foot. It needs to be near the airport. It needs to be new construction, all this stuff. And the guy came back to me with 3,500 square foot, old construction, not near the airport, all these things. And I was like, you suck. So I went on Craigslist or the newspaper, the classifieds, and I looked a place up, and the guy said, well, you need a business plan, sir. So I actually just wrote down all the things. I said, I shampoo people, I blow dry people, I cut. And then I said, that was my business plan. And he was like, this business plan's awesome. And I was like, it is, because I've never written one. And he gave me the place and let me rent the place.
That is awesome. But you said something that I want people not to forget. You opened your salon out of desperation. There's two things with what you just said that I need people to understand.
Yeah.
Robert Cummings fired you, and you made a commitment. You're still going to honor him because you took the ego out. This is what it kills people in this industry, because there's so much ego. I used to have one. I get it. But you still, to this day, I've watched you and Robert Cummings interact. I've got to, experience, caper with you guys and all the things. And you still love him so much because of what he was able to give you while you were there and do for you. And so tell me more about that, because that's where people in this industry go wrong. So many burned bridges, probably because it's full of women. I don't know. I can say that because I am a woman.
Hey, ladies, I didn't say that. Tara said that.
So I said that.
But I think it's just about honoring. I mean, he was so amazing. He was there for me at so many different times. I mean, there was times where my mom was struggling with alcohol, and I didn't know if she was actually going to live at the time. And he made sure that I was okay. He sat with me. I remember there was a time when I was, I think it was my 22nd birthday. And it was the first time I was away from my family. And he knew that. And he knew I didn't have enough money to be able to fly back from San Diego to Memphis. And so he took me to Rubio's, and we sat outside and had a taco. And he paid the $2 that it was. And to me, that was like paying $1 million. And he took me surfing, which I was horrible at. And but he was there with me. And I'll never forget that. And for what that man, the sacrifices that he did, like for me, Tara, honestly, all I wanted to be, this is all I wanted to be when I was with Robert. All I wanted to be was the guy in the elevator that when you got onto the elevator, you saw Robert, and then you were like, who's that guy? That's all I wanted. Yeah. And he gave me the opportunity when I didn't deserve it. I didn't, I didn't have the talent for it. I didn't have any of those things, but he allowed me to be in the place. And there was one time, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but there was an award ceremony, and it was called The Alternative, and it was in Chicago. And he had me, because he needed to be at a different place. So he had me dress up in his clothes and walk out on stage and take a bow, because he needed to be in a different space because he was getting dressed for another part of the show. And I walked out and I did the thank you or whatever it was. And I walked out, and he told me afterwards, he grabbed me and pulled me close. He said, the reason why I did that is because I wanted you to feel what it's going to feel like in the future for you and what's in store for you.
Wow. And
I'll never forget that. And to have that adulation, to have a standing ovation of a completely packed, like it was thousands of people. And this 23-year-old was not ready for that. I didn't deserve it, but he allowed me to experience it because he saw something in me and he believed. And for that, I'll always honor that guy.
Yeah. Because if you would have had that, if he would have given that to you, you probably would have messed it up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Like I have most things that God has just given me, absolutely 100%.
Exactly. And I loved, just that's the lesson. That's the lesson that a lot of hairstylists need to understand is you don't deserve, you got to build your seat at the table. You can't just pull one up and expect to sit there. And, I entered your environment just wanting a seat at the table. And that's why I've honored you for so many years, because you gave me a seat at a table I did not deserve. And I wish more people in this industry or any industry would understand that. And that's what leaders do. It's not, that's what leaders do is you take a chance on people, you give people opportunity. I believe that leaders they should make success easy for everyone around them, meaning they culture an environment that they could be successful. And so you opened the salon, you got fired, you went through all that. Tell me about that, because that's what you did for me, was create a space that success was easy, even though I didn't know it at the time because I was young and dumb.
Well, it was simple. It was simple. It was simple. It wasn't easy, and you worked your tail off. You know what I mean? And you worked really hard. And so what we wanted to do is just help people to understand that our rules and regulations were nothing more than a list of our screw ups. That's all it was. And so when Terra screwed up, she had the freedom to screw up whenever she wanted to, as long as you write it down and we can make it better in the future. Right. And at times I wasn't the best communicator of that, because some people saw the rules as, oh my gosh, you're going to get in trouble. But as we started to grow, what I wanted to do is we really broke it down into a couple of things. Number one, what does your culture look like? Right. So stop right now and ask yourself what your culture look like. Now, everybody tells me the exact same thing. Oh, we're about integrity and resilience. But I'm like, that's crap. You don't believe that. It's something that's a placard on your wall, but you don't live it. Your culture is the actual actions that you do, not the placards on the wall. So let's establish that and then look at, as far as the culture, it's a living, breathing organism. And if it's not breathing and living, then it's dying and it's dead. And some people live by it. I had a person, Terra, this is so funny. I went and spoke at a conference for a large casino company. And I said, what are your core values? And she was like, I'll email them to you. And then she emailed them to me, and there were like 17 of them. And I remember pulling a person aside that worked in the company, and I was like, hey, what's your core values? And they couldn't tell me. And I was like, they're not your core values then. So let's look at, that's what we looked at. It's like, let's look at the culture. What is the culture? What's the story of the company? And does that align with your story? And can you connect the two of them? Number two is we look at the processes and procedures, the systems, right? So we look at those systems. Are your systems set up for success, right? Then we look at the production. Are your systems set up for success? And like you said, do you have the stats? And can you show the stats? Can you celebrate them? And if they're not celebrated publicly, it's as if they never happened. Once that happens, then we start to take as my pops would say, we start to take the mufflers off, right? And people start to innovate. Why? Because they understand the culture. It's in line with their story. They understand the processes and procedures and the systems, which is nothing more than a list of their screw ups. They understand the production and what is possible. And then they start to be like, well, what if I could do this? Would this make it better? And then they innovate, and they have the freedom to innovate. And then the last part of it, which most of us leave out, is the fact that we've got to adapt it. And like you, Terra, I was about to call you Terra Harvell. That's how old school we are. Is
like the original name.
You apply it. You applied it. But then we look back at those 5 things and we wrap them into it. Okay, so those are all great. This is the package, right? Oh, wow, I went through the course. I did the things. But then my question is, how do your people feel about it? Because if the vibe is off, none of that stuff that I talked about even matters.
Yeah. And, it's funny that you say that, because, we teach salon owners right now how to scale. And the very, thank you. The very first lesson, though, is your vision. What is it that you're after? And your core values, your vision, your mission, and your core values. And people want to skip to the strategy, because strategizing is fun, like, it's like, how are we getting to the $1 million? But they want to skip this part. Tell me how dangerous it is for businesses to operate without these things in place. Because in my book, I feel like, we hire, fire, and promote on our core values. That's the way we operate.
Yeah.
How dangerous is it for a business to have? Because your salon's had an insane culture. That's why I came there.
Yeah, but I wish that I would have had a Terra Harvell as a coach at that time, because I hired on looking in your eyes. But I mean, one of the main reasons why I hired you is because of Nana. Like, and the reason why I knew it is because this little thing. I looked you in your eyes, and when you said I drove across the country with Nana, you called her Nana. You didn't say my Nana. You said Nana.
Everybody.
And okay, so here in my head, I instantly reverse engineered it. And I said, if there's a point where I tell this girl that she needs to be on time and she's only 14 minutes before her shift as opposed to 15 minutes, which is our standard, I could stand in her face because she's already driven across the country with her Nana to be here. And I knew I could call you to the table on that stuff. And there was times where I called you to the table on those things, which didn't make you very happy with me and didn't make you like me at the time, right? But I think that, when we look at it, I want to show you. Can I show you a little graphic?
Please.
I don't know if it'll even show. I'll show this at the summit too. But if you look at this is how most people build their life, right? So if you look at it, if you were going to build your house, you're a real estate mogul too. I can add that to the repertoire, right, Terra? And so if you were going to build real estate, there's no way you would build real estate like this.
Right.
You would not build it on the smallest amount of real estate possible, the foundation that's the smallest point of the structure. But this is the way that most people do. They lead with their skills, which is their actions. They hope they could build their mindset at some point in their 30s or 40s because they go to a conference and think my mindset has changed, or they listen to, Hermosi or Grant Cardone, which is awesome if you apply it. But they think I'm going to change my mind now. And then they hope at some point, 50s and 60s, that they turn it into, wow, now my heart is fulfilled. But we've watched people, and you have so many clients that are salon owners that have built and led with their strategies, hope it goes into the mind, and then hope it gets into the heart. And thank God for people doing that, Terra, because if not, you wouldn't have a business right now, because you're in the business of doing this, of showing people you got to understand what your core beliefs are, which is your heart set. You got to take that into your intentions, which is your mindset, and then they will spit out your skill set, which is your actions. And once those are in line, the crazy thing is now your vibe, or the way that people feel around you, is so irresistible. Terra, that's the reason why Harper Ellis has grown the way that it has, because people feel okay in your environment to be able to grow to where they want to grow.
Yeah, 100%. That is so good. And I hope everyone, you need to stop replay until you understand. But it's so good. And that's what, if there was one thing, which Kelly, you've taught me countless. I mean, I could write a book of all the things I've learned from Kelly Cardenas. But the one thing, and the reason why I think so many people, worked for your salons and wanted to work for your salon, moved across the country to work for you, is because of your vibe and the way that you attract people. And you can enter a room. I knew you on some bad days. I was around, but you didn't know. You had to really know what was going on behind the scenes to even think that there might be something behind the scenes that's shaking you up a little bit. And you always have this vibe that people are just like, you can walk in a room with 1,000 people, and I guarantee you're gonna have 100 of them beeline it to you because you're the first person they want to talk to.
Thank you.
How do you do that? Because that's a talent that people need to understand they have to have in order to succeed.
Well, let me ask you this. What is for you, what is that makeup? What made you feel that way in my presence?
Inspiration. I was constantly inspired because of what you've been able to do and what you've overcome. And you weren't hiding anything that you had overcome. So you were always so inspiring. That's it. Inspiration.
Well, the way that we talked about it earlier, as far as the start that stops you, right? And most of the time when I talk about overarching your heart set, your mindset, and your skill set, people are like, okay, so where do I begin? What we do is we begin at the very foundation. And what we do is just a quick little exercise, right? Take 3 minutes, get by yourself, get silent, grab a piece of paper. I use my Remarkable, which I should be sponsored by, and the podcast should sponsor that. Remarkable. Remember that with a K. Remarkable.
Those are pretty cool, actually. I've had one. I don't know where I'm at, but I should get it back out.
So sit down for 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, and write out 4 things that are what you say is your core beliefs, and write it down. And then the next day, 3 minutes, do it again. and do this for 7 days in a row. 21 minutes. That's all I ask. 21 minutes out of the week. And when you do this, what you'll do the first time is everyone does the same thing. They'll write out like what their mission statement is. And I just allow yourself to call bull poop on yourself. That's not what you believe. It's what you think you should believe. It's what you hope to believe. It's what you hope to accomplish, but it's not what you believe. And when you sit for a week and you write this, you'll actually distill down what you actually believe. And some of you out there that are listening, your core beliefs or your belief system comes from what you've heard, you've seen, and you've become aware of through your senses of people that you value. And some of you value people that are not good people in your life. And this could be your mom. It could be your dad. Your dad could have, I had a guy, and can I tell you this story real quick?
Please. Yeah.
I had a guy come to me. I just spoke for a NiftyCon, which is the digital marketing for attorneys. And we went through this exercise. And at the end, he said, I didn't want to say it in front of everyone, but I wanted to tell you that when I wrote things down, at first I wrote down what I thought I should believe. And then I actually started to write down what I actually believed. And what I believe is that I'm not enough, that I'm a horrible person and I can't accomplish the things that I should be able to accomplish. And I said, why is that? He said, because that's what I heard from my parents every single day. They told me I was a piece of S. They told me I'd never amount to anything. And he said, I have been chasing that for my whole entire life until today. And when I looked at him, he had really, really amazing arms. He was a very fit guy. And I said, does your physical stature have anything to do with that? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Because every time that I heard that I was a piece of S, I needed to go to the gym and prove them wrong. And I said, well, how long of you burning negative fuel will it take for you to get what you want? That's going to be an infinite amount of time that you're going to have to burn negative fuel. You'll never get to what you want if you're burning negative fuel. If you take a piece of dog poop and light it on fire, and then you hold it in your hands and ask why no one wants to be around you, it's because you're emitting hot dog poop. So take those core beliefs and you write them down. And I'll give you an example. Here's mine. And you heard this from me, from my mom and dad all the time. You met my mom and you met my pop. So these things are true, Terra. My mom said, I'm awesome. She said, I'm beautiful. She said, I could do anything that I put my mind to. I'm awesome. Separate myself from my accomplishments. I'm beautiful. Don't ever compare myself to anybody. And I could do anything that I put my mind to, but just because I could do it doesn't make it my purpose. You were around my pops. He was a lot simpler guy. He would just say this one statement, boy, you're the greatest. So act accordingly. So that became the core belief. And so on my heart set on the bottom, I know exactly what those are. And so when I had yesterday, this morning, I went through it and I looked at a podcast that didn't perform at the level that I wanted to because it didn't have the amount of listeners that I wanted to have. I had to go back to my core belief. And what was at the bottom of my triangle? It was that you're awesome. Separate yourself from your accomplishments. Were you doing exactly what God told you to do? Yes. Did he tell you to do that? Yes. Does it matter how many people listen to it? No. If there was one person out there that was hanging on by one little hand and saying like, today I need something, and they heard it, would that be okay with you? And not millions of people? Yes. Okay. So stand in that and stand in those core beliefs. And so once we do that for those 7 days, you start to develop that heart set, that belief system. That right there is enough for you to get started. Yeah. But it's just the beginning.
You know, what I'm hearing, and I think that a lot of people in any industry, anybody listening to this, they lead with wanting more and more. And, you know, like you're wanting to impact people, but yet you get distracted by how can I go there faster? And how can I, and I do the same thing. I'm like, my goal, my team, every morning we shout 500K stylists worldwide, because that's the goal. We want to impact 500,000 stylists all over the world. But what you just said, I mean, this is a coaching session for me right now. So thank you so much, because I get to impact people every single day. And then we start moving so fast that we forget about the one. So tell me how more salon owners can put that in place in their business to be able to have a great culture, scale the business, and it's going to help everything on the number side if they stick with the main thing.
Well, I was very fortunate not to have digital marketing when I started. That sounds like a crazy thought, but here's the case. if every salon owner out there would understand, and these are things that you heard from my pops, and my pops was around in the salon. You remember it, Terra, and he would pull you out, and he would pray with you, and he would talk to you about Jesus right in the middle of whatever. And you'd be like, what does Jesus have to do with doing the 12 steps? And you have to tell him the 12 steps. I ain't telling him, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that smile, you know exactly. And when they aren't done, you need it. When you get done with 12, you better be focused on one. You better have one eye on all the clients, and you better have one eye on the cleanliness of the salon while you're walking through. Eagle eyes, baby, eagle eyes, right? You know what I'm talking about. You're going through PTSD right now, right? But here's the thing.
No, my employees are going to watch this and go, that's where you got it. That's why you make us do that.
I'm saying hands full going in the door, hands full coming out the door. Yeah. Go in the door and slide in. Don't open that bad boy all the way. You got to slide in. You know what I'm saying? You know. Like this is, and no one's going to understand any of that, but you and I do. That's why I wanted to say it, Terra. But here we go. If every salon owner would stop for a second. Oh, I need this. I need that. I need that. I need to pay my bill. Blah, blah. Stop. Pause. Just for a second. My pops taught me the most valuable lesson in marketing that has ever been. And here it is. It's the rule of 10. Did he ever tell you this, Terra?
I think I know exactly what you're about to say because it came from him. So
here comes the rule of 10. For every one person you touch, they'll either tell 10 people to come to you, or they'll tell 10 people to go away from you. Watch this as a hairdresser. If I'm a hairdresser, we talked about it earlier. If I'm a hairdresser, and I did this number when I was in this when Jesus was walking the earth. That's how long ago it was, right? So I'm not like Terra is Steph Curry. Like I'm like Wilt Chamberlain back in the day. You know what I'm saying? But here we go. I did this rule based off $100 ticket, which most of you would scoff at and be like, what did the person buy? Coffee at your salon for $100, right? And Tara's laughing because of that. But okay, think of this. To make $100,000 a year, a six-figure earner, I created this years and years ago. It was just, I didn't create it, but I just came up with the little algorithm for it. If you did 8 clients a day at $100 a pop, $100 a pop, that would be $800 a day. 5 days a week would be 4,000. 4,000 cut in half would be 2,000. 2,000 times 50 weeks in a year with 2 weeks off is $100,000. If you did those 8 clients and you booked them on the 6-week mark, right? So 8 clients a day, 5 days a week, that would be 240, or that would be 40. Booked on the 6-week mark, that would be 240 people that you need in your whole clientele to make $100,000 a year. And that's on a $100 average ticket. Yep. Now, if you said like Terra, that's like an average ticket is like 1.1 million, but let's say today, average ticket can be $400. Yep. So if you take that, I just gave you the formula with only 240 people in your town to make $400,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, watch this though. Rule of 10. If I touch one person, they send 10 people to me or 10 people away from me. If I touch one person, they send 10. I touch those 10 and I make sure that they have the greatest experience in the world, they send 10. So I just went from 1 to 10 to 100. And those 100 go tell 10. Now I'm at 1,000. Now I can tell people I actually can't take you because I don't want to, because I have 750 people, 760 actually, on the waiting list to be able to get to me, because I can only take 240 that will pay me $400 once every 6 weeks, because I would like to live the lifestyle of making $400,000 a year, which will change generations. Yeah. But on the flip side of it, watch this, Terra. If I touch someone and I'm not completely there, my heart isn't in it, they're going to tell 10 people to stay away from me. Now watch this though. I'm so glad I didn't have digital marketing. The reason why, because it taught me to focus on the one that will go get me the 1,000, as opposed to focusing on the 1,000 that will get me one.
Yeah. 100%. One to many can be dangerous, you know?
But I tell you too, Terra, there's marketers that will tell you, oh no, that's complete. But for me, this again, like if I would have added digital marketing to already, could you imagine if we had digital marketing when we were doing what we were doing, the impact? I mean, that would have been shooting fish, not in a barrel. Like that would have been shooting fish in a glass.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we would have blown up the world because people had no idea how cool it was, how cool the things we were doing inside of the Kelly Cardenas salon. Seriously. Um, so why do people, because I was a remedial math student and I was able to follow what you just said, simple math. Why do they overcomplicate that? Like what
I
happens?
I think most people overcomplicate because they're afraid, they're just protecting their position. So I don't fault them for it, but they're just protecting their position, right? So, and you find this in most corporate structures. Most corporate structures don't want to bring in a new idea from a young kid. Why? Because then their position they think will be less valuable. And so what people want to do, and I learned this in the financial world. So I was at can I tell you this story?
Yeah.
So I'm at a convention, right? So it's the number one networking conference for in the world that you can't go to unless you're invited. And I happen to be the co-host now. It's called Secret Knock. And Tara, you and your husband need to come. This is unreal. It's an unreal conference. So I'm at that the first time as an attendee, and I'm watching this guy. He's the number one money mentor in the world. That's what his moniker was.
Yeah.
And he's in the bar, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's him. That's him. That's him." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's him." And he kept saying this word that freaked me out. He was like, da, 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 da. And he would just say it. He was like, arbitrage. And I was like, whoa, it's a big word. Man, he must be the man. That's why he's the man. And then he kept saying it. He was like, and every time he say it, he'd be like, arbitrage, arbitrage. And all I heard the whole time was just arbitrage, arbitrage, arbitrage. And I was like, man, first of all, I'm dumb. That's what I'm thinking. I can't compare to this dude, number one money mentor. That's why arbitrage. And then I did what I think every person should do. I turned around at the bar, grabbed my phone, went to Google,
Yep.
Googled arbitrage, and it said the difference between two numbers. And I said, wait a second. I said, everyone thought you were so smart because you were saying this big ass word that had a really tiny meaning. But I didn't know the meaning because it was the vocabulary and vernacular of the culture, and I didn't understand it. But then, because now I knew it, I had someone come up to me one time, and I knew he was in the financial industry, and I was talking to him, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. But the arbitrage is, and I dropped it on him. And when I dropped it on him, Tara, he was like, oh my gosh. And now he talked to me as if I was a peer because I knew his language.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And from that point forward, he let me in on certain things. And I find that most of the time, if you want to transcend industries, you want to transcend with people, just understand their language, what's important to them. And most of the time it'll start with food. So with you, I know down in the South, you'd be putting some gravy on some stuff. And if I go see Nana, I'm going to have some gravy. And I already know that part. So if I eat with Nana and I have some gravy and I have some biscuits and I make sure that I have some greens and we talk about that, we commune, then I start to understand her language. And I understand that the word 10 in her language actually has two syllables, TN.
True. Oh my goodness, I love that so much. So let's go back to salon ownership because
Okay.
this is where, you inspired me to be a salon owner. I didn't open my salon for I think 6 or 7 years after
Yeah.
you and I were working together because I was building my stat and we talked about that earlier. I wanted to build.
No, but break that down because you drop fire, Tara, and then you shine the light on everybody else and be like, oh, this is a genius. No, you're a genius. And you drop these on. I was like, I felt like you should just drop the mic, turn off the thing and just go home. That's how good that was. Hit them with it.
Yeah. So, I left your salon and we were having this conversation on your podcast and you taught me how to move fast. You taught me that time was money. And if I didn't learn to move fast, then I was never going to be where you were because you moved fast, because you were my mentor. And so I had to go, I moved back home all the way back to Arkansas. I worked in a salon and I had to build the stat because I knew that if I was going to get stylists to trust me and work in my salon, that I had to be better than what they were then. Because if I was the same as them, then why wouldn't they just go open their own salon? Right? So I want to go back to your salon and all the things that I learned from you. And that's what I want my audience to hear.
Yeah.
How did you figure out that the faster you moved and the way that you worked? Because I want you to understand the way that we took clients inside of your salon is not normal. And people need to work like that or just go home.
Yeah.
So I teach that in my own salon. I'm like, this is just it. I have kids that come to my own salon that never had another job, in their entire lives. And so they think it's normal. And then I have people come in from other salons and they're like, you guys are freaking crazy over here. You're, taking 70 clients in a day. But why? What is the importance behind that? Like, how did you learn to work like that?
Well, there's who's the only person in the world who doesn't know that they're the stinky kid. And the quickest way to be the stinky kid in this industry is be slow. And when you're slow, you make all the excuses in the world. I'm a perfectionist. I like to make sure and connect with my clients. No, 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 you're slow and you're stinky. And the quickest way to become the stinky kid is be slow. Like in any environment, no, it doesn't matter whether it's the hairdressing, if in the financial world, if you're slow, you're susceptible. Yeah. And so watch this. It comes down to this TTE, right? This will change your life. Like salon owners, just write it down. Timing. You remember this: technique, entertainment. That's the holy grail. Okay. If I have timing and I'm faster and we have the exact same skill, I win. Why? Because I just gave you your time back. Although if I'm really fast and my technique isn't that great, I'm susceptible. But if I got my timing, I got my technique, I'm a master at what I do, I just shut up and work. This was a thing that we made a shirt. I don't know if you were around the company when we made the shirt. It said, shh, work hard. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to say is shut the up and work hard. That's what it was. Timing, technique, and then comes the entertainment. When you are a master at what you do, you can laugh. You could tell stories about Nana and gravy and all those things, knowing that you're going to hit your point because you know it and you've done it so many times. And if you have timing, technique, entertainment, your guest is not susceptible in the mall from someone coming up and saying, I'd love to do your hair, because they'll be like, can you get it done in 45 minutes? No. Are you a master at what you did and did all the work in the dark when no one was looking and you're the best at what you do? No. Can you entertain me and make it all about me? No. Then I ain't coming to you. And I can tell you this, it works in a marriage too. My wife is one of the hottest women in the world. You know her. And she's one of the most talented women in the world. And she's the most intelligent woman in the world as far as business-wise too. And right now she's on a national photo shoot for Paul Mitchell right now that she's doing up in LA. Am I afraid of this incredible woman being up there around all these people that absolutely love her, all this adulation? No, not at all. Not at all. Because I make sure and let her know that I love her. But I can tell you this, there are so many clients out there, so many hairdressers out there that haven't given their all and given their heart to their client. And your client right now is susceptible to someone coming up that's faster than you, that has better technique than you, or has better entertainment from you than you. And if they have all three, ooh,
yeah,
it's curtains.
Totally. And I remember, you as a hairstylist making more money than God behind the chair. But I would, as your assistant, would get so distracted by your stories. You'd be like, what are you doing? You got to go get the thing that I need. Go get the 413.
the one, right?
Oh, but there's so much importance in that, because that's your clientele was so, I mean, they were like celebrities coming in, and then some of them were celebrities, but coming in the salon, and it was like, that's Kelly's client. And because they loved you so much. And I think that's, there's a lot of education out there. It's like, no. You got to connect. You got to connect. That's why we do what we do. But then there's education, like business education. They come in like, you got to be quick. You got to get good. But you've married the two, which I think is no one teaches that. I'll be honest. I don't think I teach the emotional side like I should, now that I'm just now listening to you.
I think, Terra, it's one of those things where, for me, it wasn't out of like, again, it wasn't out of this inspiration. It was out of the fact that I got bored, right? So it's going to be a thing. I talked to you about it, and I'm planting the seed and calling the shot, and you have to, if you don't publish it, you're fine. But you and I, honestly, there's some things that we're going to work together on. And honestly, for me, in my head, if you're taking over 7 to 13 minutes, I'll give you a little cushion here. I generally say 11. If you're taking over 7 to 11, let's call it 13, just to be nice. If you're taking over that amount of time to cut hair, then you're wasting time and you're wasting money and you're not making as much as you can, which will cause your relationships to be stressed and cause you to be susceptible to probably one of the worst things that you could possibly have happen in your life for your kids and for you, which is called divorce. And when that divorce happens, you're going to have to make twice as much because you're going to be paying for two households. And some people, when they say like 7 to 11 minutes, how can that connect? But I could tell you this, like we did it down to like, I don't know if you remember me telling this, the foil.
Yeah.
Like you put a foil in and let's say that you take 15 extra seconds.
Yeah.
15 extra seconds. For every 4 foils you take, it's a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If you do 100 foils in the head, which sometimes we will,
yeah,
right? 100 foils in the head is 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
25 minutes a day. You take 5 of those, it's 125 minutes. It's 2 hours. 2 hours could be $800. $800 a week times 50 weeks in a year, it's 40 grand that you just lost because you were saying, oh, I've got to make sure that this is exactly perfect because I didn't do the work when the client wasn't here. I only do the work when they're here. And I wasn't practicing at home to become a master at what I do. And I tell you this with the podcast, right? So I told you this. A busy podcaster does 52 episodes in a year. That's a busy podcaster. Mm-hmm. This year, since January 6th, yours that we just did was 523. And so we've done this year 205.
Whoa.
Okay. So this is what I want hairdressers to understand. And thank you for even getting to talk to hairdressers, like, because I don't get to talk to them that much anymore, is this. Okay. When we were working, and you know this to be true, we would take anywhere from low end 15 guests in a day to high end, sometimes 25. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's do the math on this. A busy hairdresser in their head takes 4, 5, maybe, unless they work with you and they take 100.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's do the math on this. If you do 5 and Terra and I did 25, for every one day we work, you have to work a week. So for every week that we work, you have to work 5 weeks. For every month we work, you have to work, 6 months. Yeah. For every year we do, you have to work 6 years. There's no way you could catch us. And this is not something that people teach. The pace and the reps that you get in. I'm preaching to the choir here, Terra, because that's what you did. There's no way that you could get to a point of, when I said 400,000, you didn't even blink because you made that behind the chair. But the only way that you could do that is by doing it over and over and over and doing it as fast as you possibly can without sacrificing technique and without sacrificing the entertainment. So people, I tell you, people they'll never, ever remember the lessons that you teach them, because lessons are caught, not taught, but they'll remember the stories you tell them. The Eeyore story. All I have to do is say Eeyore, and what do you think about?
My attitude.
But what you explained it earlier today. You told me the weather. You told me the door, where the sun was. And it was simply a story.
Yeah.
The lessons will be caught, not taught. So stop trying to teach people and let them catch the things that you do.
Do you think that storytelling is you're painting the vision so that people can understand where they need to go to? Is that what you're kind of getting at, as far as,
I think it goes back to, hairdressers don't like to talk about this either, but it goes back to biblical principles, right? So the greatest teacher in the world, right, that had the greatest impact of anyone, that told everyone not to talk about him.
Yeah.
How did he teach? Through parables. And what did you see in the parable? Did you see the person or did you see yourself? You see yourself. And once a person can see themselves in the story, now we're cooking with gas. Yeah. And I didn't realize that until I started working with my buddy, Greg Reed, because I always thought that the story should be about me. They'll hear me and they'll hear this lesson. And he was like, no, they need to hear about them. They need to see themselves in the story, because when you talk about the Eeyore story, every hairdresser is like, oh man, I had a bad day. I had a bad attitude. I've been in that place too. I feel you. That's why you're a master at what you've done, is because you've helped people, Terra. And I know you're intentional with it, whether you know it or not, you've helped people to see themselves in the story, as opposed to beating your chest and saying, you're a piece of garbage because you haven't accomplished what I have. And that's the reason why you will continue to be as successful as you
I love that. Thank you so much for that. People that are opening salons, and I want to kind of know how your story went with that. How did the salons go? How did that end up? Where are you now? Because I think there's a lot of lessons there that's part of your life that I didn't get to have a front row seat at. So I want to know more about that.
Well, we built, and I told you that if I would have put myself around, if I would have listened to you back in the day, Terra, I got a chance to talk to a guy named Van Council. He owns Van Michael salons, and if you're a salon owner and you do not study Van Council, you're silly. You're absolutely silly. He is the GOAT. I mean, unreal. Robert, what I've learned, Robert's concepts that I was so in love with and chased a bunch, he was mentored by Van. So it was a generation away. But what Van said was, and I told you about it, if I was to do it over, I would have done what Van told me to do, which was to just take a protractor, circle around your salon a 3-mile radius. When you get to the goal of what you want with your location, pop a salon 3 miles inside that 3-mile radius from your salon, and then send the best person in your salon to that salon, and it won't cannibalize your business. Okay. I wish I would have known that, but we started in Michigan. That was the first salon. Vegas was the second. Third one was Carlsbad. We had Salt Lake. We had San Diego. We had the Hard Rock in Vegas. I did a consulting one in Sacramento. So we were spread out, bunch of areas, right? And in probably 2019, my wife, we were on a dog walk, and she said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I was like, in my head, I was like, well, I'm kind of grown up, you know? And I said, well, and she said, no, seriously, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, well, I'd like to start a podcast, and then I'd just like to speak, because I've been doing that simultaneously for the last 30 years while we own the salons. But I want to do the keynote speaking side. And she said to me, asked me some questions that were wild. She's like, how much do we have? What's our burn rate? And when I answered the question, she said, then let's go do it. And so we put the salons up for sale. And the difference is I learned from a friend. I asked you, enterprise, are you going to enterprise your business? And you said yes. And I was so happy that you just shook your head, because I know you're a business genius anyway. But see, most salon owners, and I did this, we thought of it as a legacy. So I'm going to build the salon, and then my kids are going to take over the salon, and then it's going to ride off into the sunset. That's not going to happen. Your kids don't care what you do, and they're never going to take on your business anyway. And every business owner, and this goes for one of my mentors, you knew Julie Compton, owning hotels, restaurants, dental practices, all these things. Your kids are not going to do what you do anyways, and they're not going to care. So what I would suggest, and this is what you're going to learn at the Legacy Summit, is to learn the difference between legacy business and enterprise business. And an enterprise business is based off of EBITDA and based off a multiple of that EBITDA that you can actually sell and sell to an enterprise, and do it off a multiple, meaning that whatever your EBITDA is, depending on the industry, in the professional beauty industry, it's about 3 to 4, if you're lucky, if you can even sell your salon, which most likely can't happen anyway, because most likely if you didn't set up the systems and processes and you're not being coached by Terra, then your salon is only worth the depreciated value of the FF&Es, which is the furniture in the salon.
Exactly.
So I wish but I found this out because one of my friends, his name is David Hamilton, amazing guy. They enterprised his business for 12 million. And he came to me and he was like, I'm going to sell my business for 12 million. This was awesome because he had bootstrapped it. It was another type of industry. But he looked at it and he was like, I'm young, but that's not going to be enough for me. And I said, okay, cool. So he went into it and created a technology that didn't produce any money, but just serviced his clients better. Mm-hmm. And he did that and worked on that for like 2 years. And they came back to him and 3 times the value of his company based off of the thought process and idea of what he had created, not what he had actually created.
Mm-hmm.
So his idea was worth more than the actual physical place. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I say this is because when I went into it, I said, I looked at my business as an enterprise business. And I said, look, this is the way that we can sell this thing. Because our systems were so militant, our culture was so militant that 75% of the clients, if a stylist left, would stay with us as a salon, which is unheard of.
Very, yeah.
So based off of that, but we did it. And what I would suggest doing is if you're going to enterprise your business, I would create financial literacy on every person in your company, create very, very healthy financial people in your company, and have one of the people that actually is working in your company buy your company because they see more value in it than an outside source. And we actually were able to accomplish that with Jen and Shauna. So Jen Moses and Shauna, Jen started with us at minimum wage, as you know, became the top earner in our company. Shauna, I don't know if you know this, but Shauna came to work with us and took a 50% pay cut because she believed in what we were doing and we didn't have the funds to be able to fund it. And those two ended up buying the company.
That's exactly. And I see salon owners. I was actually on live on Instagram this morning. They're not taught to think big enough. Like you can exit your business if you build enough value in the business. But we just think we're opening salons. And yeah, like you said, what do you think your kids are going to take it over? I know my son, he's 3, but I can already tell you, he is not going to want to run mom's salon. I can assure you of that. So
well,
when
you look at that too, Tara, like, you got to make sure that you understand EBITDA, and that's where I would stop. Like, if you don't know what EBITDA is, just go Google it. Right. And so when we look at that EBITDA, a multiple of that EBITDA, if your EBITDA is, $200,000 a year, $100,000 a year, but you've got to look at it from a salon owner standpoint. Most salon owners don't take a salary and then they drop all their money to the bottom line and call that profit. That's not profit. So once you understand that part of it, then you can multiply it. So if you're a salon out with your salary, with all the stuff, you make $100,000 in profit as a salon. If you have really tight systems, you could sell that salon for a 3 to 4 times multiple, which would be $300,000 to $400,000 for the sale of the business. Yeah. And so, for us to look at these kind of things, and even if you're never going to enterprise it, to have yourself set up, and this is what I suggest for every single person. Number 1, have a great accountant. Tara, you know what I'm talking about. Have a great accountant. Number 2, do 2 sets of books. Do the books that we all as entrepreneurs report to the IRS because we want to pay as least taxes as possible, and then have the EBITDA books already set. So that way, if somebody comes and says, I would love to buy your business, well, here's the EBITDA, here's the multiple, this is what the offer is.
Exactly. And you didn't learn that from beauty school, right?
No, I learned it by messing up, like just by like screwing up. And I learned this, like we went to sell our salon in Chicago, and it was just a communication breakdown for me. Right. So we had one of the kids that was going to buy the place, and it was silly. Because we had it set, everything like that. And I had a conversation and I said, look, just make sure that you don't, this is the cardinal sin in the professional beauty industry. If you ever say this, make sure you don't tell anyone. As soon as you say that, you're done. You're done. And I said, just make sure don't tell anyone about this. Now, as a hairdresser, before you're an owner, you're in the back room and you're like, look, not supposed to tell anybody. Can you keep a secret? Please don't tell anybody. And everybody has that person that they're going to tell. And so by the time that it was time for this person to buy the place, all the people in the place had already heard that it was for sale and got freaked out and left. Yeah. Now, and see, that's where I failed. And it was my side as far as the communication. So I've got to make sure that if I don't get the results that I want as a leader, there's a sender, a receiver, and results in communication. And it's never, ever the receiver's fault. It's always the sender's.
I love that. That is so true. I love that. Well, I just appreciate all your value, and just, this was a coaching session for me. So
are you kidding me? No way.
Hey everybody, I'm going to charge people to watch this podcast because it's that much value. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm excited for everyone from the Harpel's community to hear from you at the Legacy Summit because I know you're just going to blow them away. We saved you for close to the end because of that reason. I want everybody to be on the high that they get from Kelly Cardenas, which is why I came to you when I was 18 years old. I'm just really excited for our business endeavors. I want to work together. I know that this is the start of something really amazing. So I'm really excited. But I want you to tell everybody, why should they come to the Legacy Summit? And what are they going to get from you that they have to hear in order to change their business? I already know what you give to me. Because the value that you've given to me in my professional career has saved me and has excelled me to millions and millions of dollars. But what are they getting from you?
Well, I wish that there would have been a Legacy Summit years and years ago, because most of the time people are so focused on the shiny things that they don't realize the foundational things that you're going to be teaching there. And they don't realize the fact that they can actually be a business that could be thriving, that you don't have to be in the business every single day to be able to, impact your family at a high level. From me, like I said earlier, I want to show, help you to understand that it's not the energy you bring into the room. It's simply the way that people feel when you leave. But there's also components that go into that. And so when we take your heart set, your mindset, and your skill set, we put them in line. It doesn't matter your offering. It doesn't matter your cost. It doesn't matter your product, because people will just want to be a part of you. And that's what I call evangelical marketing. And when you get to that point and people are preaching the gospel of what it is that you do, it's what my dad would always call, it's curtains.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and it's exactly what I took from you at 18 years old. It took me a minute to process, maybe more into my upper 20s.
Hey, you did. I tell you, if people could process it at 10% of what you've done, and you give so much credit away to so many people, but the reason why, Terra, and the thing that I think that they should take away from the Your Legacy Summit, and if you're out there and you own any business, you should be there. But especially a salon owner. But I tell you, the thing that you bring and the thing that you inspire, not by your words, but what will be caught from you, is the action that you take on the things that you hear, Terra. And that has and will continue to be that differentiation from you and every other person. But the cool thing is, they have the ability to now work with you to have that in their life too.
Exactly. Implement. So, well, I want you to tell people where to find your book, where to find your website, where to find your podcast, because I'm listening to it almost every single morning now when I'm getting ready. It fires me up. So they need to do the same.
Well, I would love for you guys to check out the podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. It's called The Vibe with Kelly Cardenas. We have 3 different shows. One is my commentary. So I go through the book of Proverbs, 31 Proverbs in the book of Proverbs, 31 days in a month. And we do the corresponding one for the corresponding day, taking 3,000-year-old wisdom and seeing how it can apply to today. And it's amazing because you'll find that there's no challenge, no obstacle that you have in your life right now that won't be able to be answered in that 3,000-year-old wisdom. That's the ridiculous thing. Then we have on there, I interview some of the most iconic people like Terra on the show, and they all give advice to my kids by name. And then I have a show, which Terra is going to be on at some point, which is called You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live and I call my friends randomly because I have a lot of cool friends. And I don't tell them they're on the podcast till they're on the podcast. And so I would love if you tune into it. It's been the coolest project I've ever done in my entire life. The book is on Amazon. It's called The Vibe. You could do that, kellycardenas.com. And honestly, as much, I thank you for shining the light, Terra, but everybody should go. Everybody should go to Terra's website. If you're not coaching with her, you're just listening to her, she needs to be your coach. You need to spend the time, because when you spend not only the time, but when you spend the money, your attention will be there. I knew I had Terra's attention at 18 years old because she put her money where her mouth was and moved across the country. Sometimes as salon owners or as hairdressers, we need to have a commitment that we can't go back. And once that commitment eliminates the options of anything else, that's when you really start cooking with gas. And that's why I think that you should work with Terra if you're not already.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is such a full circle moment. I can't wait to send this podcast to my mama and my nana and all the people that need to listen. So thank you so much for being on here. It was such an honor to have you. You are amazing. You're great. And we will talk to you soon.